Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have three fantastic panelists for you. Scott Beaudry from Henderson, Nevada, Mark Donnelly from Long Island, New York, and Sarah Ware from Chicago, Illinois. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the questions. So there is new inventory that seems to be coming onto the market, but we still have historically low housing inventory. What is your local market showing in terms of inventory growth or lack thereof? And anybody can answer, just jump right in.
I'll start off. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. So in the Long Island market, looking year over year, we're still down about 6% compared to last year. And we're not seeing that changing anytime soon. So it's definitely a time to really be very strategic with the way you're looking to sustain and grow your business as a realtor here.
Here in Chicago, I just was looking at, I have my screen here with data, so I don't know, I am paying attention, but I just want to make sure I have my data here. But the numbers were just released, and from this year over year, we're down about 30% down inventory now. Historically, Chicago, it's the wintertime is somewhat of a soft market, but we are pretty down this year because I think sellers are, they are hearing what's going on and seeing market times are rising and increasing. And I think people are just holding on if they really don't want to sell. It went from, overnight, the overnight shift has a mindset of like, maybe I'll just wait until the spring market. Inflation numbers are rising. We got big elections coming up. And so I think people are just putting things on hold and a combination of all that at once.
How about for you, Scott?
Got back on. For some reason, I lost connection, but I'm good.
So we're talking about inventory. What is your local market showing in terms of inventory growth or lack thereof?
We've shown over the last 3 to 4 months a 41%, inventory, I'd say. Actually, I take that back. Sales were about 41%, but inventory, we've dropped about 40% also in terms of inventory. I think individuals right now are just kind of holding off and just trying to feel where we're at over the last month. I take that back. Sorry. I take that back. Inventory has dropped, not significantly, but it has dropped. Individuals are just trying to hold and see. They're kind of afraid right now. We're heading into the holiday season, which traditionally we show lower inventory. And I just think over the next couple of months, that is going to drop off even more as compared to last year. So they're just kind of holding out in terms of inventory.
And Scott, Henderson is the Las Vegas market, essentially, right? Is that correct?
The entire valley, correct.
Okay. So how is this lack of inventory impacting your real estate practice and changing the way that you do business?
For me, for me, I think it just, where we always are hearing about threats to the realtor, threats to the agent about who's going to take over. I think this is very important for us to even be more armed with all the research and data that we have, because it's more of a conversation up front, listing appointments with buyer, and then with buyer consultations. It's a conversation because sometimes you may have a consultation with someone that may not be the client for you just based on their expectations. Because if you're seeing the data, you're looking at the trends, and you're doing all your research on the back end, and you still may have a client that may not be amenable to like what the strategy is, what it should be in the market that we're in now. That may not be the client for you. So I think it's just furthering the realtor value. And for those that may not have a strong value statement, I think the data that we have will arm them with the information, because now it's just all data driven. And you can't just do a quick Google search for an article and think that, okay, now I know I can do this myself. But it's a combination of things around in your local market, and then you kind of dial out to the larger market and see what trends are. And then you have to kind of verse yourself in the financial market, which we know affects housing. So here in the States and abroad. So I think it just arms us better as professionals, and then it helps our clients to be armed with more information.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could follow up with what Sarah said, I think, you know, when you're on a buyer consultation or a seller consultation, like you're with your prime audience at that time. But I think it can start even earlier. I think real estate is a hot conversation topic for everyone because it's affecting a lot of people, whether it's affecting them directly or their kids are buying, their friends are buying, their neighbors selling, they heard the story, a coworker. So I think we have to prepare ourselves with those conversations that are mindful and meaningful when it comes to when someone asks you that question, what's going on in the market, or the interest rates are crazy, and you just go, yeah, you know, or there's nothing to sell. Like that's what any realtor, you know, any real estate professional can say, but what are you going to do to elevate yourself and differentiate yourself? So I think it's important to recognize that these regular day-to-day conversations can turn into real estate conversations, which then turn into a buyer or a seller consultation or a referral. And it's important to remember who your audience is. If, you know, someone asks a question about inventory or interest rates, you don't know if they're a buyer or a seller. So you have to be really mindful of how you present the information, so that you don't, scare this potential buyer or seller from doing something that maybe they're already really apprehensive to do. I think that when people are apprehensive and we're in uncertain times, over communication is really important, and people find safety and comfort in data. I think it's this is the time where the research committee is the cool group to everyone.
Okay, I can get behind that. Okay, Scott, how is it affecting your market?
So I'm using my phone, so I'm having to switch. So it's definitely affected our market, and to go off exactly what they said, it's a time where we are the industry experts. We must arm ourselves with the absolute knowledge and be empathetic. We need to be empathetic to those buyers and sellers going through this. We need to understand where it was, where it is, and we need to have a good understanding of where it's going. If we don't, then we're just one of those, yeah, the market's interesting, conversations. But no, we must, and that Mark is right. We're the cool kids. Research and the things that NAR is doing to give us that expertise that we need out on the streets to be able to assist our buyers and sellers and be that voice that they need today to get through this. We are that voice. We are those experts. We are going to get our consumers through it, and we need to arm ourselves with the right knowledge.
Okay. And I'm going to stick with Scott for this and then come back around. How specifically is this lack of inventory impacting your buyers and sellers? Have you worked with anybody in the last 2 years who just had to walk away?
Oh, for sure. In our brokerage alone, dozens. They just got tired of being beat out by investors, beat out by cash buyers. And now they're having to deal with the escalation of the interest rate. So it's from the fire to the fire. So now they're just in total shock. But again, it's our job to talk them down. If you really look over the last 10 years, what's the average interest rate? It's kind of where we're at right now. But it's the shock of it that is hurting us. And yes, the Fed is most likely going to raise more rates. But we've got to be able to counsel our buyers. And if they can afford to get in with the higher interest rates, then we counsel them as to why it's a good time. I mean, it's turning into a buyer's market. Unfortunately, the rates are what they are, but it's turning into a buyer's market.
Okay. And Sarah, how specifically has this impacted your buyers and sellers?
So here in Chicago, the market sale price is probably around the 250, 350 price point. And so it's a lot of FHA buyers, a lot of sellers that are looking to sell properties without pretty much doing a lot of upkeep. And a lot of homes are in an older community, older homes, I would say. And so they may need some maintenance. But buyers, you know, from FHA standpoint, you have sellers that look at the news and they think FHA or VA buyer is bad, and then and then FHA buyers are tired of going in with 10 offers, and so you see the rise in the love letters that they want to present. And so, I mean, there's just so much that goes into that. Now, with the interest rates are rising, the affordability changes. So they may have an approval when their market was hot, hot and the interest rates were lower, they could afford a lot more house. And now you have to have a conversation like, what can you really afford right now? And that's why it's always important sometimes, like, okay, you really don't have to be at the top of your market just in case things like this happen, but the houses that they like and seem to want are in that price point. So the conversation is shifting. And then if they don't buy now, may wait a year, the rental market is so expensive, then how do you keep saving for that house when you're already in a market that's so crowded, because that's a crowded space in the markets that I serve. Where do you, like, how does that work for you? So it's a longer process, a longer consultation period. And so you have to make sure you are up for the challenge to just touch base with people like, hey, and you're always having to know what's on the market using, here we have the private listing network, reaching out to your colleagues, what's coming on the market, and just keeping in touch with your clients, buyers and sellers to see, you know, if I have something that works better for you. And also, even when I arm myself with information, I'm constantly looking at the construction, what's going on around me, and the commercial. So I think in our research, I'm looking at the commercial market. They just released their report, and I look and see how is a commercial affecting, how's the commercial market going downtown Chicago, which is where a lot of people are, downtown where a lot of people go to work. How is that affecting? So if I see that is rising, I think they're trying to putting a lot of information about that kind of tells me which way the market is going. And I think, as Scott says, we need to know where the market is going, and we don't have a crystal ball, but we definitely need to be in tune with the commercial market as well, at least on an overview of it.
Okay. All right, Mark, how about you?
Yeah, I think you know, if there wasn't if this wasn't a takeaway for people as far as the pandemic, the importance of managing expectations, those of others and of ourselves. But when it comes to the real estate market, I feel like that's the most dominant hat that I wear, is the managing expectations guy. I think it's really important to make sure that you're asking, when you meet with a seller or when you meet with a buyer, you say, what's your understanding of what's happening in the market right now? And I think that really helps with the way you're going to go in your conversation and how you're going to, educate them or, show them. I think that's another important thing strategy wise. You have to show people what's happening in the market. You can't just tell them. And I think it's important to do that with your hyperlocal, market data when you're on an appointment. But I think it's important to understand where your client is at before you, go in that direction. Nadia from the research team, in April, she did a presentation talking about, for every one affordable house, there was 125 buyers for every one affordable house in April of this year, versus in 2019, there were about 40, somewhere in the 40s. So if we had 120 in April, the reality is the interest rates changing did not eliminate the entire buying population. There are buyers entering the market every single day. So I think it's important for sellers to know that. I think it's also important to know that a recent poll of buyers was 80% of buyers didn't feel that the interest rates going up was a roadblock for them entering the purchasing market. It might make things look slightly more challenging, but I think sellers who are thinking that it's not the right time to sell because buyers are jumping ship, that's not truthful. I think the buyers that are most affected by the interest rate change are the ones who have been looking for a year, and they were in the market looking when it was, interest rates were in the 3s and the 4s. But buyers who started looking yesterday, they never knew that. So I think that's important too. And source of information, where are they getting their advice? Where are they getting their financial information? Source of information is really important, because likely they're getting this advice that they shouldn't buy because of interest rates from their dad or their uncle. And I'm very common, I say, go ask your dad or your uncle what their interest rate was when they bought their first home, because the answer is probably like 16%. So, the reality is, home ownership is always a smart way to hedge inflation, regardless of what the market is. And homes are continuing to appreciate. They have last year, this year, and they're forecasted it's slightly slower, but it's always a good investment to purchase. So strategy is another important thing that we talk about. Like, what are your goals? Why are you buying? Why are you selling? So that we can align our strategy with your goals. Because there's no one right or wrong way to sell a house or buy a house. There's different options available.
And we've talked a lot about managing the expectations of buyers. Are you finding yourselves managing the expectations of sellers? I mean, we were in a place where 14 offers, 12 offers, 9 offers. Are you still seeing that? Or is that starting to shift in your market? Start with Sarah. She's nodding.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that question in the chat, because sellers are crazy. Like, let's just be real. So, I mean, and we can do all the managing expectations that we do up front, show them the data. I just had a client, she has a condo. All summer long, I've been trying to get her to put this on the market. It's an in-town unit, and she decides to put it on. I think we just put it on like maybe a month ago, like literally the first weekend. She goes, "Are we doing an open house to see how many offers we get?" And we're 30 days later, and she doesn't have an offer. I think she's about to jump out the window right now. So we can keep showing them. I mean, she appreciates the data, but I was like, trust me, there's no one, your house is being seen out there. They're just, and now 3 units have come on in her building, and she's just, so we can do all the information on the research. But I will say, on sellers, I'm telling them, like, you have to be house has to be in pristine condition. Like, things that you didn't clean before, your screen, like, everything needs to be touched up. No project left undone, because if they come to see yours and if they're looking at something else, you want to be in the running. So it's more emphasis on making sure you have, I mean, in the pricing, we can't say, let's just see, like sometimes, oh, let's just see if this, no, there's no, let's just see, let's just price it where it should be, and keep that information. So if you want to look back and say, hey, but I think sellers are, they hear us, but I don't think they truly believe it, because I don't think they believe that the market just went like this and this overnight, but it did. And I tell them, I said that was just a Black Friday sale that just went on a little bit too long. And now we're just back, we're back to, normal, but people are just not in the market right now for their unit, or they have enough inventory now to choose from because they don't have as many multiple offers. And so I'm not hearing as many multiple offers as it used to be. And if it is multiple offers, it's something that's priced appropriately, and it's in pristine condition in a location where everyone wants to be. Like, all the things line up. Could be in a certain school district, it could be in a suburban market where everyone wants to live. But the days of let's just put it on the market as is and sell it. So it's more upfront preparation when it comes to the look and feel, pictures, everything comes into play when it comes to that. So the sellers may have to spend a little bit more money than they had to this past year.
Okay. How about in your market, Scott?
So just since July, we've had a median sales price drop of $25,000 in our market. So if, back in May, June, buyers or sellers were thinking, let's wait, let's take our time, prices are still going up. Nobody knew it would drop so dramatically. And then like she said, they weren't in a rush. I've had clients put a market, just take their time, take their sweet bippy time, putting it on the market and say, the price, it is dropping. And then they lost $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, depending on the price. They didn't realize that they were still living in that previous world of multiple offers, and it completely turned on a dime. Now we don't have multiple offers, and they're having to price it accordingly. Before the market was chasing them. Now we find that sellers are chasing the market. But I think just in the last few weeks, sellers are starting to understand where the market is. They're starting to listen to us more. They're starting to see it, and they're but again, a little bit too late. We should have priced it right from the beginning. In the first few days of a listing is the most important to put a property on the market at the right price. You're going to get the most exposure. And again, like she said, you have to make it pristine. You have to be the best house in your market, period. You've got to get as many views. It's all about that first impression. It's all about curb appeal. Make sure it's perfect, but don't take your time making it perfect. Get it done, get it on the market as quickly as possible and price it right. It is up to us to counsel our sellers in the pitfalls of not pricing accordingly, because they will in this market lose more money by spending more time.
Okay. And Mark, you'd said a little bit about managing the expectations of sellers, but what are your experiences with sellers specifically at the moment?
Yeah, I think sellers are definitely a party that you need to ask them their understanding of the market. Because if, like Scott just said, if they say, well, things are selling over asking and there's 70 showings in the first day and there's multiple offers, and that's not the case anymore, it's important that you educate them as far as what you're seeing. And I think through like storytelling and experience, like you have to talk about a recent transaction that you did or in your office and bring those facts and of actual occurrences, so that the sellers don't realize that they're alone in their, whatever their lofty expectations are. There are other sellers who have thought that as well, like feel, felt, found. But what we found is this is what's actually happening in the market. Somewhere that I think a data point that's really important to make sure that you're talking about with sellers is days on market. I think there's a lot of value in, you might not know what a home, a pending sale sold for yet, but you can tell from the list price how they were positioned and the days on the market if that was a smart strategy. And if it went into contract in we don't go into contract in downstate New York until post inspection. So they accept an offer, they do an inspection, then attorneys sell out contracts. So it takes 20 days is not strange for an offer accepted on day one, unfortunately. But when you look at those quick days on market, it's very telling. I think it's also important to look at properties that are on the market that have not sold yet and have had to have price reductions. That's really telling as far as where you're going to position yourself. So I think there's a lot of ammo in the pending and on the market solds, as important as our sold properties are for appraisal sake and whatnot, and comps. I think, pending sales and on the market sales that have not sold yet can be really helpful in helping you to show your seller the reality of the current state of the market.
Okay. And Sarah, you looked like you had something else you wanted to add. Nope. Okay.
If I may add, one thing I think that people that are now putting their house on the market need to understand is if you show them like an interest calculator, this is how much your house is going to cost someone. I think that kind of brings it into reality for them, because now they understand how much somebody's going to have to pay. And so I think that's one thing that I have started doing, is just using an interest calculator and so they figure it out that now is not the time to be greedy. So.
Okay. So we're in a moment of transition right now, largely due to housing affordability. Many buyers are being priced out of the market due to the rise in rates and the rise in home prices. And as we have been discussing, sellers are receiving fewer offers than we had seen just a few months ago. So what else are you doing to actually approach that conversation with sellers right up front? Anything we haven't covered at this point?
I'll go on. I think we've covered the fact that, number one, we need to be empathetic. We need to be that expert. We need to know the facts, and we need to bring the stories of what's actually going on right now to the sellers. But it's a matter of listening. It's a matter of listening to their needs, number one, most importantly, and then being empathetic to those needs, and then giving them straight facts. Giving them those facts and giving them our expert opinion is the most important thing. We need to be right up front, because most of the time, let's get it right, most sellers don't understand the market. They don't. That's why they entrust a realtor. That's what we do, and that's what we do best. So we need to take that job seriously, know our numbers, know where the market has been, know where it is, and know where it may be going. Of course, we don't have our crystal ball, but we need to have an understanding of what's happened in the history in order to bring a reality, hopefully bring a reality to those sellers. Now, we can't get across to every seller every time, but we can absolutely do our best.
And I'll piggyback off what Scott said when it comes to being empathetic. So every time I usually go in and we work out a net sheet, and I need to understand what that net sheet, where are they netting out, or what do they owe? Because oftentimes this may be their retirement home, and like there may be, this money is needed for the next phase of their life, and they need every dollar to go on, could be retirement. And so understanding where they are, they may be unrealistic from the start. So just that way I can set that expectation up. If you're saying like, I need this because I'm moving down to Florida to a retirement place that costs XYZ. If you need to net this, then your house needs to look like this. And then we're looking online, we're looking at other homes that have sold, what they look like, because everyone always talks about, well, I did this, and they always want to think that their improvements are triple of what they are, especially if they're very customized to themselves, and show that, hey, you see how this looks? HGTV is not real, but people think that's reality. And so as a consumer, they're looking at everything. But if you understand where they need to net out, you understand sometimes they're coming from a place of, I need this money because I need to retire, and I have nothing in this, or no savings, no real savings. And so just navigating through that, kind of having an understanding. And sometimes you may not be able to get that price. And if you understand that as an agent from the beginning, then you are in a better position, because how many times we as agents, we get the call, we just put it on the market, and a day later, like, no offers yet? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, what's happening? What's happening here? Oh, you need this because your taxes are sold, and or you need this because someone is owed this. And so understanding that from the get, because I too many times, and I've been guilty of not knowing, because what do they say? Buyers are liars and sellers are storytellers. So I go in with that mindset, and then that way I can just say, okay, now what story do you have to tell me? Because then I have to do all my back end research and figure that out.
If you have hidden agendas, please unhide them for me so I can help you.
They don't unhide them. We just have to be navigate enough to say, okay, this is on title. That means something, or especially with divorces, they don't really tell you that they're getting a divorce or thinking about it. If it's not divorced yet, then you have to kind of navigate it. And then that's emotional as well. But understanding what that net needs to be, that helps me.
That makes sense. Okay, Mark, you had something.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with what Scott and Sarah said. And I think, I think agents find successful agents who are successful regardless of what the market is like. I think there's a mind shift away from the fact that we're salespeople and we're really service professionals. And I think, like Sarah said, getting to understand what your clients' needs and wants are, that's something that people really appreciate. Salespeople tend to be terrible listeners. So this is an opportunity for us to not be that salesperson, be someone who really understands where they're at, what their goals are, so that we, again, can create a strategy that aligns with them. I think when you're dealing with uncertain times, but people still have to move, whether they have to buy or have to sell for whatever reason, when the situation is, as uncertain, they need to work with someone that they trust. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to present ourselves and showcase ourselves as the real estate trusted advisor, and consult them on what they're looking for in their next house, and what their finances look like. I think when they're feeling in a comfortable place, in a safe space, they can make more logical decisions, which I think it's really, really important to acknowledge through empathy, acknowledge the emotional aspect of buying or selling, but then helping them to put on their logical hat so they can make their logistical decisions and their financial decisions for themselves, their future, their family, from a place of logic versus a place of emotion. Because usually, we have to try and eventually justify an emotional decision later on with logic. So let's just start from there. And I think they need help getting there a lot of times. So I think that's, again, the opportunity to be the trusted advisor for them.
Okay. On an up note, are you beginning to see discouraged buyers coming back into the market at this point? Want to start with Sarah and then go around?
I think buyers are looking like, now I got the balls in my court. I can ask for a couple of some concessions. I have choices now. I don't have to feel rushed, because that's one thing I did not like about all these competing offers, that, because I tell people, even on the sales side, we didn't like it, but because you get caught up in the emotion of it sometimes, of like people not getting that. If I had 7 houses, I would sell them all to you. But I think buyers are now like, they can make a decision based off of their finances and strategy, as opposed to emotion tied into that. So I think buyers are feeling like, okay, I don't have to rush. I can take my time. It may not be all the inventory, but I think there's enough inventory for that. And, or they're taking their time and saying, hey, you know what, school started, let's just wait until my kids are on spring break or first quarter 2023 and just wait it out. Not because of the market itself, but because of everything they have going on. They feel like, okay, the market's it's in a place that it's not so much chaos right now.
Okay. Mark, I think you were about to jump in, and then, or Scott, Mark, whoever, jump in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there's buyer fatigue is definitely a real thing, and whether it's because buyers were discouraged. And I've had buyer clients who were very smart and very strategic when they made offers. There were just other buyers that had a better offer package or something that was more enticing to that seller. And then you have buyers who refuse to pay, like for ego's sake, I'm not paying over asking, I'm not giving away my right to do an inspection, I'm not, conceding on anything. And some, a lot of them lost because of that. So I think you have different sets of buyers who then suffered from buyer fatigue. I think the ones who were more reasonable are the ones who are now like, all right, there's a little bit more inventory, there's a few more options. We've really reassessed what our budget is, and we've really looked at what our housing needs are, and they've been able to create a new strategy as far as what they're willing to look at and where they're willing to look. But the ones who were unreasonable yesterday are going to be unreasonable tomorrow. But we'll get them a house eventually, but it's going to be on their terms in their mind. So I think that those are the challenging buyers to work with. At least in my experience.
And Scott, in your market, are the discouraged buyers starting to come back?
They are, but like Mark said, the ones that are unreasonable, they'll still be unreasonable. They'll still complain about something. Yes, the interest rates are higher. Yes, it will turn into possibly a higher monthly payment. Prices are starting to drop, but now we need to become the strategic realtor for our buyer. Now is the opportunity to, and Sarah said it, concessions. Now is the opportunity to ask for those concessions to buy down the rates. We have that opportunity now with the lower sales going on. Sellers need to sell their property. Make those offers, ask for those concessions. That'll help our buyers in the long run. That's what we need to become savvy on. We need to become the savvy realtor for our buyer in this market. Like Mark said, inventory is still low, but it's there. There is enough to choose from. And yes, there is a timeline. Yes, interest rates will jump up, I'm sure, over the next coming months, just because that's what's going to happen. But we need to be the savvy, strategic realtor for our buyers. I think that's key right now, and knowing how we can do it that'll best fit their needs.
Can I add something really quick?
Sure.
I think, and I'm just reading some of the chat comments as far as interest rates are concerned. Yes, I agree. My first house was 6.5%. I think I did the last stated income loan in the state of New York back in 2008. And then everything changed. But I have since bought another home. I've refinanced several times. But what I want to say is, I think when you're dealing with buyers who can't wrap their head around this, I think another great tool is work with your mortgage professional on a buy versus rent, and not just like in the traditional sense where like you're paying this much in rent, you could be buying that house with this mortgage payment, because I think that's simple at surface layer. But the reality is on Long Island, for a 1-bedroom apartment, we're talking about over $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom, and you have no property and you have no place to park your car and all this kind of stuff. So that can, definitely buy you a sizable house, regardless of what the interest rates are. But if you show them what the interest rate and the reality of renting long term, what that does to their net worth over time, over 5 years, over 10 years, sometimes people need to see again, what's your goal as far as you buying a house for your forever home? Are you buying a short-term house that you're going to grow out of? But if you can show them what their payments are, if they are renting now, and what that would be in a mortgage payment, but then on top of that, show them in 10 years. For example, if you're buying a $700,000 house, which is around our median price, for a $700,000 house over 10 years, if you bought, your net worth would be almost $300,000 more than it would be if you rented for 10 years. So that's a crazy, that 300,000 is a lot more than, what your monthly payment is, or the difference between 7% and a 5.5%. But I think sometimes they need to see this. They don't think this way. This is what we do every single day, and this is what a loan officer does every single day. But I think sometimes we can give them a better perspective if we show them numbers like that, to help them get over, what the interest rates might be holding them back from.
Okay, so we've touched on buyer fatigue. Let's talk about agent and broker fatigue. Many of you work with other real estate agents at your brokerage, you work as coaches. Can you talk about real estate agent fatigue?
It's real. Realtor fatigue is real. From no matter what market that you're in, if you are high end, just and from the standpoint of, we're always on, army markets. In some markets, like in my market, I have to be a lightweight appraiser as well, because I'm fighting for value. Then I'm fighting against the naysayers, like it's not a time to buy. And then you have one client, and then you may have the entire, I don't know where these people come from, population come for the inspection, like what's happening here. So, I mean, over and over after time with this market, it is fatigue. But I think from a buyer fatigue, from an agent fatigue standpoint, the biggest fatigue is fighting off social media and what they project agents to be. And so from that perspective, I think people portray our industry as, okay, we stand in a nice house, get some pictures taken, it's that easy. But as we are all talking here today, we understand that it's a lot of research that goes into what we do. This is a profession, not a hustle, so to speak, or a side hustle. And so it can get to be fatigue in fighting your clients and other agents, and then there's people coming in our industry who've been in our industry that don't take it as serious as we do. And sometimes you just need to, which is why I'm an Orange Theory person and I work out, but just taking care of yourself, I think that kind of helps. I think we just forget about the little things that we need to do as agents to make sure we take care of ourselves, so we can be the best for ourselves and our clients. And so fatigue is real when you're coaching other clients or agents, just making sure they're realistic with their expectations, because we always we're talking about the buyer and the seller expectation. I think agent, we need to have an expectation ourselves of what we have to do and how we have to perform day in and day out. So I think, and it takes planning. Like right now, we should be in planning mode for 2023 to figure out what is our goal setting for next year. And then when you talk to a majority of the agents, they don't really do that as deep as they should, this is my humble opinion. But I think sometimes just changing mindset and just changing with the times and with everything that comes that's coming at our industry, we just need to make sure we are staying on top of it by taking care of ourselves.
Okay, all right.
I think put your mask on first. strategy is very important. All those flights we've taken. I think that I'm glad. I think Margie just put something in the chat. I was going to speak to the importance of professionalism, because I think a lot of our stress and grief can come from, cooperating agents. And I think we have to remember that that specific adjective was selected to go in front of that to describe what our relationships are supposed to be like. I actually just had a listing that we ended up having like 90 showings in 3 days, but this was a low price home, so I was expecting that. But we ended up having 30 offers, and to have to tell 29 agents that are waiting for an answer that they didn't get it. The way that you do that is very, very important. And we have this little message that we send out, and we almost with the seller's approval, we kind of are able to give them at least some more information about, the offers that came in, how many of them were cash, how many of them were over ask, as long as the seller lets you do that. And it gives them some context to go back to their client. And the responses are like, thank you so much. You don't know how many times I don't even get a phone call back. And something like that just makes it's nice to know that when you go out and play in the sandbox, that people are going to play nice with you. And if they're not, you don't know what happened to them that day, or what position they're in. And it's almost like you have to, not let them emote, but keep the conversation professional. And I've even had situations where I have to say to someone, it doesn't sound like you're prepared to have this conversation with me right now, because you sound upset. Why don't you call me back in 5 minutes? And even then they're like, I'm so sorry, you don't understand what's happening with my client. So I think it's important to be empathetic to other real estate professionals, but also be really, really mindful of your communication and your response time, and cooperate with cooperating agents. And I think that will help you help others. And it's, a big difference.
Scott, you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so what Sarah said, it hit the nail on the head. Realtor and broker fatigue is a real thing, and leadership comes from the top down. As a broker, it's my job to help counsel and calm my agents and my team leaders down, and counsel them as to how to counsel their clients, buyers and sellers. So it comes from the top down. We need to be there for our agents, therefore they need to be there for their clients. It's full circle. It really is full circle. We need to do that, and we need that guidance from the professionals in the industry, such as Dr. Lawrence Yun and those in our organization who are the experts in their field, and taking that expert knowledge and bringing it down to our agents. That's what we need to do in order to help our consumers.
Okay. All right. Well, at this point, I want to open the floor for other questions. You can put them in the chat. You can unmute and ask questions. Give people a second to gather their thoughts. We saw a few questions in the chat earlier, and I think we've answered all of them at this point.
This is Claire Jean Prager in Tucson, Arizona. I don't think we've answered them. I think we also have to answer, quote, the media. No matter who we turn to, each market is different. I mean, no one loves, I don't care what market, at what mortgage rate, no one loves running around town at 115 degrees in the middle of summer in Tucson. That's our normal slower time, regardless of the market. But then along comes the media and disaster. The sky is falling. We have to be careful. Everybody has to be careful. I mean, I'm glad I'm not living in northern Michigan. I'm glad we have, we'll have maybe 80 degrees and sunshine today. I don't want to shovel the snow. Well, you don't want to shovel the heat either. So some of it is our location. Some of it is people take every word the media publishes is for our own market. And that's not true.
So what do the three of you do to combat that? What do you do to answer things that you're just wrong about your market? Thank you, Claire Jean.
So I'll answer. So Claire, we do have a lot of doom and gloom coming from the media. That is one of our biggest obstacles. You're absolutely correct. And we as professionals do need to answer those questions. Do we go head to head with the media? I mean, that's a question for you, Claire. Is that something that you would propose? Do we go head to head, or do we just take that, gain the knowledge from our industry professionals such as NAR, and then take it to our agents and take it to our team leaders, therefore take it to our consumers?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and this was a comment Scott made about, looking to our leaders within the NAR organization, asking for, when someone tells you a piece of information, it's okay to ask them where they heard that. And sometimes it might be like, oh, well, I heard it on the news today. And you can address it and say, like, that might be, that's national news, or, whoever said that isn't the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. That's who I go to when I want economic information about real estate, the person who studies specifically our market. So I think we have resources where we can say, we have these unbiased data sources as far as bringing the reality of what's happening in the real estate market, whether it's nationally or hyper local. But I think you got to know where people are getting their information from, because you'd be surprised. Sometimes they get a fact from a neighbor that they take as, the most accurate thing that could have ever happened, and it could have been misconstrued, through the telephone game, So I think it's important to know where they're getting their information, and know that we have resources to get, the most up-to-date, facts and figures for our markets.
And I kind of take the approach like Paul, he just put in the chat as a springboard. So my first instinct sometimes is just be like, where did you get that from? But understanding where it comes from, and then I'll have a conversation like, where'd you find that? Like, oh, can you send me that article? And then I may send them some data and tell them where I got it from. And I don't want to say that they're wrong, because, I am empathetic on that side, but I know there's so many things, and we know how to read the data. They're not necessarily, they don't really necessarily know how to read our data, because it's so much data. They may hear one number, like Mark was saying, one number here, one number there. So from a media standpoint, because you often think that, they may think they're the professional, but we know that they may get numbers from some other site, or, so I always just challenge and say, where did you hear that? And they have unfortunately, they do have a larger platform. So I don't use it as I need to combat the media. I just need to take my market and my potential clients and give them the information based on where I am. So, because the media, they're just going to be there, and because they're in all facets, not just our industry, they're in several industry and markets. And I've learned that the media is here to entertain and to sell sponsors, sell ad buys, and they're there to sell things, to promote their shows or their content. We're not that, so we could never be like the quote unquote media. I just try to capitalize on my market and make sure that I'm armed with correct information, and try to help others that want to.
And that actually brings us to another good question, which is, what are the most important metrics to watch and share, and what do they mean for your buyers and sellers, I think is the question.
Well, I'll piggyback off that. So I guess it depends on what your MLS. So I get a lot of data from NAR Research. I follow them on Instagram, and the NAR website. Our local market, we have our data through Fast Stats and InfoSparks. But I have found that giving it to clients, they'll have a nice sheet. Like, I give them the most basic information, because I have tried to give them more information. They do not, they can't handle that. So if we can dumb it down to a couple of stats that we know what's important to them, that's what they want. If they dive deeper, we'll have that. But I've learned to kind of I have a little template that I've made my own, just to kind of put some data in about their market and what's going on around there. And I use Cloud CMA on a couple of things and insert some pages, but simple and as many graphics as possible is what I found, because we have so much data that we get excited. Like, I get excited with data. Everybody's not excited about data. So I just have to learn to keep it simple. What's the KISS? I won't say the other S, but that tends to work for me, because I think that hits all demographics. I'm not changing it, but if somebody wants more, there are some nerds that want a little bit more, and I'll give them that as well. But I've learned that don't give them all at once, because that has backfired. They're like, oh, what is all this? So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm, a fellow data nerd here. But I think as far as like most of your local MLSs can, whether it's your AE or staff or someone from the board, get those monthly indicators as far as I think for me it's inventory change, is important. Your median home price change and the number of sales. I think those are really helpful for me as far as the conversations I have, but also like being strategic with my own business planning. And I also think it's such an untapped resource. Member benefit is the profile of home buyers and sellers. Even if you just go to the highlights, which is, it's 100 and how many pages is that, Lisa? 190 pages, something like that. But the highlights
Yes, something like that.
goes through, what buyers are looking for, what sellers are looking for in homes, in their agent, in financing. There's a for sale by owner section. There's such great data points in there that when you're having a conversation with, maybe you're trying to convert a for sale by owner and, they want to do it on their own, they want to save the commission. You could say like, well, NAR research from last year showed that homeowners who sold their home without a realtor sold their home for 18% less than those who did. So to save X percent and leave 18 on the table, that's just bad math. And that's not your opinion. This is research. So I think research takes the opinion piece out when you're showing them facts. So I really think definitely take the dive into there. And Stephanie shared the link to the research and statistics. There's so many good reports in there that are very, very topic specific. But like I said, generalized, your MLS has those indicators for you.
Scott, what metrics are you relying on?
So number one source, I'm going to shameless plug for research, of course. They do an amazing job and they really, really drill down. They have research reports drill down to region, metropolitan area that are done for our members that are right there ready for you in NAR.realtor under the research to download. Understand those. You need to take the time to actually understand the statistics. You don't need to be a data nerd. If you're having an issue understanding the stats, then go to your local association, like Mark said. A lot of associations have media departments where they put out news stories and they put out the stats to the local media as to how the market is from month to month. Get those simple, and Stephanie's right, or Sarah's right. Simple, make it simple. And that information put out to the media outlets from your local association are put out in a simple way. But number one, listen to them, then answer their questions. Just don't spew out a bunch of data that they're not going to understand. That's the worst thing you can do. But you need to listen, understand, and have the data and have a good understanding in simplistic terms. And the media, again, can be our biggest enemy because we all know if it's on the internet, it's true. If it's on social media, it's true. No, not. But the fact of the matter is we need to understand what's out there so we know what to say to our consumers, because again, they look at us as to we are the experts in the industry. We need to be the experts. We're realtors. This is what we do. We're professionals. This is our job. And you need to understand the market in order to combat what's on that media.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you can also, if you're using NAR data and there's something you don't understand, you can also contact us at NAR and ask the question, and we're here to help. So thank you for that shout out, everyone. Are there other questions? I wasn't seeing other questions, but if someone else wants to unmute, we've got just a few more minutes here.
I saw Kara put in the chat that she used she used InfoSparks and she's just trying to understand the data. So I just happen to know a trainer, which is how I got to deep dive. So I don't know if she knows a trainer, but if she shoots me an email, I'm sure she'll be happy to give her a buzz because I could just put them together. She can kind of understand the ins and outs. Ooh. Because we have InfoSparks. I don't know if they have it there, but we have InfoSparks training here. Uh-oh, Carrie is going to kill me. But Carrie, she does InfoSparks training online, and she does it, I think, yeah. So shoot me an email. Carrie's gonna kill me.
that I can't help you with. I don't know much about that. All right, any other questions or anything else that we have left unsaid on this subject? All right. Oh, does Carrie have a class or pre-recorded maybe? Yeah, Sarah put her email in there. Oh.
No, she just that's my email, so I'll just
Uh-huh.
tell her what I did, and then I think I'll tell her to make a custom quick class. Because if you're on this video, then you're the upper 10%.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you all so much. This was absolutely wonderful. And I think we'll just wrap it up then, unless anyone else has any burning questions. And we very much appreciate your time. Thank you.